The murder mystery no one wanted solved. An officer and his canine dog fight for justice. When Officer Sam's brother is wrongfully convicted of murder, he and his loyal canine dog master uncover a dangerous conspiracy within the police force. As they dig deeper, they expose a network of corrupt officers covering up a far-reaching criminal syndicate. Every step brings them closer to the truth, but also to an unpredictable and deadly showdown. Sam stood in the cool breeze of the early morning, his German Shepherd, Master, at his side. The dog's coat shimmered in the soft light, and his eyes were sharp, ready for whatever came their way. Sam had been through countless operations with Master. The bond between them was unbreakable, built on trust and years of shared experiences. Sam's work at the police department had earned him the respect of his colleagues, and his reputation as one of the best canine handlers in the force was well known. But that morning, everything changed. His phone rang, pulling him out of his thoughts. The screen lit up with his brother Riley's name, and Sam's stomach twisted. Riley had been in prison for months, convicted of a murder he swore he didn't commit. Sam had heard the stories, but the case against Riley was solid, or so it seemed. His brother's words had always been adamant. "I didn't do it, Sam. I'm being set up." Sam had his doubts. Everyone had their problems, their secrets. But Riley was his brother. Sam had always protected him, even when it meant ignoring the law. "Sam, listen, you've got to help me." Riley's voice crackled through the line, a mix of desperation and frustration. "They've got it all wrong. I didn't kill him." Sam stood still, gripping the phone tightly. "Riley, I don't know what you want me to do. The evidence is all there." "I'm telling you, there's something they didn't consider," Riley continued, urgency in his tone. "A bloody knife. It's locked away somewhere, Sam. If you find it, you'll see this is all a setup. You have to believe me." Sam felt a knot form in his stomach. A bloody knife? That detail hadn't been mentioned in any reports he'd seen. "You're saying no one's looked into it?" "No one. They never even searched the right place. They covered it up. Someone powerful is behind this." The words echoed in Sam's mind. Someone powerful? He felt a chill crawl up his spine, though he quickly shoved it aside. "I'll look into it," Sam said, his voice heavy with hesitation. He knew he was stepping into dangerous territory. If anyone found out he was investigating his brother's case, it could end his career. But how could he ignore Riley's plea for help? As Sam hung up, he turned to Master. The dog's brown eyes met his, as if understanding the weight of the decision Sam had just made. Sam gave a tight nod. "We've got work to do." The next few days were a blur. Sam had to be careful. If anyone discovered what he was doing, it could cost him everything. He started by revisiting Riley's case file, digging through old police reports, photographs, and evidence. It wasn't long before he came across something odd, an entry about the murder weapon. The report made no mention of a knife, just a gunshot. But Riley's phone call had been clear. A knife was involved. Sam's instincts told him to dig deeper, but there were too many eyes on him. His colleagues at the police station started to notice his odd behavior. Sergeant Miller shot him a suspicious look when Sam spent too much time alone in the evidence room. But Sam didn't care. His brother's innocence was on the line, and if there was a chance he could help, he had to take it. He couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was going on. As he went through the case files, he found more troubling details. There were mentions of unsolved murders from years ago, murders that seemed to follow a pattern, and a name kept appearing in the shadows, the Shadow. Who was this figure? How were they connected to Riley's case? Sam decided to follow the leads quietly. He needed to find that knife. The evidence that could prove Riley's innocence was out there, and it was up to him to uncover it before time ran out. Master stayed close, sniffing around each location Sam visited, alert for any sign of danger. They checked abandoned warehouses, old crime scenes, and even Riley's cell in prison. It was a long shot, but Sam had no other choice. Meanwhile, Riley was struggling behind bars. His cellmates weren't the only ones he had to worry about. The same powerful forces that had framed him were now making sure he stayed quiet. Threats came from every angle, and Riley was starting to crack. He couldn't take much more of it. Back in the city, Sam uncovered something chilling. A connection between the police department and a string of unsolved murders. It was as if the cases were all connected, like puzzle pieces waiting to be put together. And the more Sam dug, the more dangerous the situation became. One evening, as Sam walked through the dark streets, trying to make sense of what he had found, he felt eyes on him. He stopped and turned, but there was nothing. The tension was rising, and Sam couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching his every move. In the distance, a figure stepped out from an alleyway, but before Sam could react, the figure was gone. Vanished like a shadow in the night. Sam swallowed his unease and glanced down at Master. The dog's tail was stiff, his ears perked up, alert. Something wasn't right, and Sam was getting closer to the truth, whether he wanted to or not. The pieces were starting to fall into place, but with each new discovery came greater risks. Sam was walking a fine line, and the deeper he went, the more he realized that the people behind Riley's conviction would stop at nothing to keep their secret safe. The clock was ticking, and the danger was closing in. Sam had been through a lot in his career, but nothing could have prepared him for what he was about to face. His investigation into Riley's wrongful conviction had already led him down a dangerous path, but now it was becoming clear that this wasn't just about his brother. It was much bigger than that. Sam and Master had spent days piecing together fragments of information from old case files, talking to informants, and tracing the strange connections between Riley's case and the unsolved murders. Everything pointed to something much darker. A hidden safe house, a location Sam had only heard rumors about, was a key part of the puzzle. He couldn't ignore it anymore. The safe house had been mentioned in one of the files, a seemingly innocuous address. But when Sam and Master arrived, they were immediately on alert. The place was run down, barely standing, but something about it felt off. The silence was unsettling, and the closer they got, the more Sam felt the weight of the unknown pressing down on him. Inside the abandoned building, they found what they were looking for. Hidden behind loose floorboards was a safe. It was a simple, unassuming thing, but it held everything. As Sam opened it, he found a stack of old files, some with names he didn't recognize. But what stood out were the cryptic messages scribbled in the margins of one file, messages that hinted at a much larger conspiracy. One name appeared again and again. The Shadow. Sam had heard whispers about this person, but he had no idea they were tied to his brother's case. The messages suggested that the Shadow was not just some random criminal, but a figure with influence, a corrupt officer within the police force. Someone who had been framing innocent people for years. Sam's stomach twisted. He knew this couldn't be a coincidence. The more Sam dug, the more it became clear that Riley's case was just the tip of the iceberg. There were other victims, other families ruined by this hidden network. The Shadow wasn't just out to destroy lives. He was building something far more dangerous. But how deep did it go? How many people were involved? Sam's thoughts raced as he sifted through the rest of the files. Among them was a piece of crucial evidence, a set of surveillance footage from the night of Riley's arrest. The footage showed a person planting the bloody knife at the scene, a person Sam needed to identify. It was the key to proving Riley's innocence. But there was a problem. The footage was locked behind a heavily secured system at the police headquarters. Sam knew this would be a challenge. The police headquarters was one of the most secure places in the city, but if he was going to uncover the truth, he needed that footage. Sam spent the next few days trying to find a way in. He knew he couldn't do it alone, so he enlisted Master's help. The dog's incredible tracking skills were unmatched, and Sam had an idea. If he could sneak into the building, Master could help him retrieve the footage undetected. Under the cover of darkness, Sam and Master made their move. They slipped into the police headquarters, using the back entrances and the shadows to stay hidden. Master was quick and silent, moving with precision as Sam guided him through the labyrinth of hallways. They reached the security room where the footage was stored, but as Sam approached the computer terminal, he froze. The footage had already been tampered with. Someone had erased the crucial moments that could have identified the person planting the knife. It was clear now that someone within the department had been covering their tracks, making sure the truth stayed buried. Sam's heart sank. Riley wasn't just framed for murder. He was caught up in something much bigger. This wasn't a simple case of corruption. It was a conspiracy that reached deep into the heart of the police force. But Sam couldn't back down now. He knew he was getting too close to the truth, and that made him a target. As he and Master made their way out of the building, Sam could feel the weight of the danger closing in on him. The corrupt officers weren't going to let him get away with this. The next day, things took a darker turn. Sam's colleagues started to notice his absence, his odd behavior. Sergeant Miller was becoming suspicious, and Sam could feel the pressure mounting. He knew he couldn't trust anyone, not even the officers he'd worked with for years. Sam realized that his investigation had gone too far. He couldn't risk bringing down the entire department, but what choice did he have? Riley's life was on the line, and if Sam didn't act fast, he might never get the chance to prove his brother's innocence. But as Sam considered his next move, he learned something that made his blood run cold. There was a connection between the Shadow and a notorious criminal organization. This group wasn't just involved in petty crime, they were deeply embedded in illegal arms trafficking and underground gambling rings. It seemed like the conspiracy was far more widespread than anyone had imagined. The police department's role in it all was more than just a cover-up, it was a part of a larger operation. Sam was trapped in a difficult decision. If he exposed the Shadow and his network, he would bring down the entire police force. That meant not just destroying his career, but tearing apart everything he had worked for. Yet, the only way to save Riley and put an end to the corruption was to expose the truth. As Sam sat in the quiet of his apartment, Master resting at his feet, he knew the next steps were going to be dangerous. The forces behind Riley's conviction were powerful, and they would stop at nothing to silence him. The time for secrets was over. It was time to make a choice. Bring the truth to light or watch the conspiracy grow stronger. The clock was ticking, and Sam's fight was just beginning. Sam spent the following days piecing together his plan, his mind focused on one goal: bringing down the corrupt officers who had framed Riley. He knew that to expose the full extent of the conspiracy, he had to hit hard, and he had to do it fast. The more he thought about it, the clearer it became. This wasn't just about Riley anymore, it was about a system that had been corrupted to its core. Sam and Master worked through the night, preparing everything they would need for their final confrontation. They had uncovered the safe house, found the tampered footage, and gathered the evidence. But they were up against a force that wouldn't go down without a fight. The Shadow was a figure lurking in the darkness, his grip on the police force tightening every day. He was the key to it all, and Sam was determined to expose him. The plan was simple: infiltrate a hidden warehouse where the Shadow and his associates were meeting, find the evidence that linked them to the criminal syndicate, and bring it all to light. But as Sam prepared, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was it, the point of no return. If anything went wrong, it could all fall apart. But there was no turning back now. With Master leading the way, Sam carefully approached the warehouse. They had spent days tracking the location, gathering intel, and finding weaknesses in the building's security. It was a risky move, but it was their only option. The warehouse was tucked away in a corner of the city, far from prying eyes. But even so, Sam could feel the tension in the air. This was the place where everything would come to a head. Master sniffed the ground, his ears alert. Sam gave a quick nod. They were ready. Moving quickly and quietly, Sam and Master slipped through an old gate at the side of the building, avoiding the guards patrolling the perimeter. Master's keen senses guided them through the shadows, and Sam followed close behind, his heart steady, his mind focused on the mission ahead. Once inside, they crept through the darkened halls, moving toward the heart of the operation. The warehouse was filled with crates and boxes, a maze of stacked goods that seemed to hide countless secrets. Sam's eyes scanned every corner, every crevice, looking for anything that could lead them to the Shadow. It wasn't long before they found what they were looking for. In a small office near the back of the warehouse, a stack of files sat on a desk. Sam approached cautiously, glancing over his shoulder to make sure they hadn't been noticed. As he flipped through the files, his breath caught. There it was, a document linking several officers, including the Shadow, to a criminal syndicate involved in illegal arms trafficking and underground gambling. The truth hit Sam like a punch to the gut. Riley had been framed for the murder to cover up a much larger operation, one that involved not only corrupt officers but also a former cop who had turned to a life of crime. The real murderer was someone who had been using the police force to cover up his own illegal dealings. And Riley's case had been just one of many casualties in this vast network of corruption. But before Sam could take the evidence and leave, he heard footsteps approaching. His heart raced as he motioned for Master to stay low. The shadows seemed to close in around them, and Sam knew they were running out of time. He grabbed the files and moved toward the exit, but just as he reached the door, the room erupted into chaos. Guards poured in from every direction, and Sam realized they had been spotted. They had to move fast. Master was already at the door, his teeth bared, ready to defend Sam at any cost. Sam's pulse quickened as he sprinted toward the exit, the sound of footsteps pounding behind him. But just as they neared the door, a shot rang out. The bullet narrowly missed Sam, and Master lunged forward, knocking one of the attackers to the ground. Sam didn't hesitate. He grabbed Master's collar and pulled him back into the shadows, the door slamming shut behind them. They weren't out of danger yet. Sam knew they had to keep moving, time was running out, and the criminals wouldn't let them escape without a fight. They had the evidence, but now they had to survive long enough to get it to the right people. Sam and Master fought their way through the warehouse, narrowly avoiding several more attacks. They were outnumbered, but Sam had one advantage: his years of experience on the force. He used his training to outsmart the attackers, leading them into dead ends and finding hidden exits. Master was right beside him, his agility and quick thinking saving them both more than once. Finally, they made it to the outside. Sam could see the headlights of a car approaching, and he knew they had no time to lose. They had to get the evidence to the authorities before the criminals could cover their tracks. But just as they reached the street, a car pulled up in front of them. It was an ambush. The doors opened and figures stepped out, their faces masked. Sam's heart sank. He recognized one of them. It was Officer Blake, a trusted mentor who had been with the force for years. Blake had always been someone Sam looked up to. But now, seeing him there, Sam realized the truth. Blake was part of the syndicate. Blake's voice was cold. "You've gone too far, Sam. The game's over." Sam's fist clenched, but he knew there was no way out. They were surrounded. Master growled, standing protectively in front of Sam, but even with the dog's help, it seemed like there was no hope. But then, just as Blake stepped forward, Sam had an idea. He quickly reached into his jacket and pulled out a small recorder he had hidden earlier. He hit play, and the voices of several officers were heard, including Blake, admitting to their involvement in the conspiracy. The evidence was undeniable. Blake froze. The other criminals around him hesitated, realizing that their secrets were no longer safe. Sam's plan had worked. The truth was finally out. In the chaos that followed, Master lunged at Blake, knocking him to the ground. Sam took the opportunity to grab the evidence and rush toward the car that had just pulled up. It was their way out. As the car sped off, Sam glanced at Master. They had done it. The corrupt officers, including the shadow, were exposed. Riley's name would be cleared. Sam leaned back, the burden of the battle still weighing on him. But he felt a sense of relief knowing that the truth had finally emerged and